The accidental homewrecker. I thought I was breaking up a marriage until I discovered their bizarre game. Part 1. The perfect setup. The worst decisions often begin with the words "just one drink." In my case, it wasn't even my drink. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" I asked, gesturing to the empty stool at the crowded hotel bar in downtown Seattle. The rain outside had driven everyone indoors, and the Emerald, one of the city's trendiest cocktail spots, was packed with a mix of tech bros, tourists, and locals escaping the October downpour. "It's all yours," the woman replied without looking up from her phone. I slid onto the seat, grateful to have found a spot. After 10 hours cooped up in a conference room discussing data migration strategies with clients who didn't understand why they couldn't just move everything to the cloud overnight, I needed alcohol and anonymity in equal measure. "Rough day?" the woman asked, finally glancing up from her phone. I turned to answer and momentarily lost my train of thought. She was stunning in that effortless Seattle way. Wavy dark hair pulled into a messy knot, minimal makeup highlighting remarkable green eyes, and a casual elegance that made her fitted blazer and jeans look like high fashion. "That obvious, huh?" I managed. "You have the look of someone who's been explaining simple concepts to people determined not to understand them." She smiled. "I call it tech support face." I laughed. "Close. Software consultant face." I've spent all day trying to convince a company that changing their entire infrastructure requires more than just flipping a switch. Let me guess, they want everything cheaper, faster, and with zero downtime. Are you psychic or just familiar with corporate delusion? She extended her hand. Neither. I'm Megan. I work in UX design for a healthcare app. I know the pain. Nate, I replied, taking her hand. And I think I love you for understanding my suffering. The moment the words left my mouth, I inwardly cringed. Real smooth, Nate. Tell a gorgeous stranger you love her within 30 seconds of meeting. But Megan just laughed. A genuine laugh that crinkled the corners of her eyes. Buy me another old-fashioned, and I'll listen to you rant about your clients for at least 15 minutes. Deal, I said, signaling the bartender. One drink turned into 3. 15 minutes of conversation stretched into 2 hours. Megan was wickedly funny, terrifyingly smart, and had a way of listening that made me feel like everything I said was fascinating. We discovered we had both moved to Seattle from the Midwest, me from Chicago, her from Minneapolis. Both loved hiking despite being city people at heart, and both had strong opinions about which coffee shops in town were overrated, most of them. "So," she said, swirling the ice in her 4th old-fashioned, "you single? Girlfriend? Boyfriend? Complicated situationship?" "Decidedly painfully single," I admitted. My last relationship ended 8 months ago when my girlfriend got a job offer in London and decided a continent was more appealing than continuing to date me. Ouch. It's fine. We wanted different things. She wanted to move to Europe. I wanted her to stay in America and keep sleeping with me. Tale as old as time. Megan snorted into her drink. And now I'm married to my job, which pays well, but is terrible in bed. She laughed again, and I found myself watching the way her nose scrunched up slightly. I was definitely attracted to her. Who wouldn't be? But there was also something comfortable about our banter, like we'd known each other for years instead of hours. "What about you?" I asked. Someone waiting at home, wondering why you're getting drunk with a stranger? A shadow passed over her face, so briefly I almost missed it. Then she held up her left hand, where a simple gold band encircled her ring finger. "Oh," I said, feeling like someone had dumped ice water down my back. "I didn't notice." "It's fine," she cut me off. "I'm not exactly advertising it tonight. Trouble in paradise?" I ventured, immediately regretting the cliché. Megan stared into her drink for a moment. "Let's just say my husband Ryan and I have different definitions of what marriage should look like." "I'm sorry," I said lamely, unsure of the appropriate response to this revelation. She shrugged. "We've been together since college, 10 years total, married for 4. Sometimes I wonder if we just got married because it seemed like the next logical step." "That happens a lot," I offered. "He works in venture capital. Travels constantly. Lives on his phone." She sipped her drink. "Last month I found texts." with his assistant. She made air quotes with enough venom to kill a small mammal. Shit. I'm really sorry. We're working on things, more lethal air quotes, which means I'm in therapy trying to rebuild trust while he's supposedly ending it with her, but still taking suspicious work calls at midnight. I wasn't sure what to say. On one hand, I felt genuine sympathy for her situation. On the other hand, I was increasingly aware that I was attracted to a married woman in a vulnerable emotional state, ethically dubious territory at best. Anyway, she continued, straightening up and flashing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, I decided that while he's in San Francisco for the week, I'm taking a break from being sad. Which is why I'm staying in this fancy hotel downtown instead of our empty house, drinking overpriced cocktails and talking to handsome strangers. Handsome? I take it. Well, I said, raising my glass, here's to taking breaks from being sad. We clinked glasses, and as we did, her knee brushed against mine under the bar. She didn't move it away. Now, I'd like to tell you that I was a paragon of virtue, that I excused myself, wished her well in her marriage counseling, and went back to my sad Airbnb to watch streaming shows alone like a decent human being. But that's not what happened. What happened was this: 3 more drinks, a shared plate of overpriced sliders, and increasingly intimate conversation. What happened was her hand on my arm as she laughed at my jokes, my offer to walk her to her room since we were staying in the same hotel, and her invitation to come in for one more drink when we reached her door. What happened was chemistry and poor judgment and too much bourbon and the intoxicating feeling of being wanted after months of loneliness. What happened was Megan's lips on mine the moment her hotel room door closed behind us, and my immediate, enthusiastic reciprocation. I should tell you, she murmured between kisses as we stumbled toward the bed, I'm not looking for anything serious. This is just... I know, I said, pulling her closer. Just tonight. Just tonight, she agreed, and then there was no more talking for quite some time. I woke the next morning to sunlight streaming through windows we'd forgotten to cover and the sound of the shower running. For a moment, I lay there peacefully, before memories of the night crashed over me along with a moderate hangover and an immense wave of guilt. I'd slept with a married woman in the middle of working through her husband's infidelity, no less. I was officially the other man, a role I'd never imagined for myself and certainly never wanted. The shower turned off. I briefly considered the cowardly option of grabbing my clothes and fleeing, but instead forced myself to sit up just as Megan emerged from the bathroom wrapped in a hotel robe, toweling her hair dry. Morning, sunshine, she said with surprising cheerfulness. There's coffee in the pot, if you want some. Thanks, I managed, reaching for my boxers on the floor. Listen about last night. Please don't do the shame spiral thing, she interrupted, sitting on the edge of the bed. We're both adults. We both knew what we were doing. But you're married, I blurted out. She sighed. Yes, to a man who's been cheating on me for at least 6 months with his 23-year-old assistant. I'd say that gives me a one-time hall pass, wouldn't you? Put that way, it didn't seem quite so terrible. Still, I couldn't shake the uncomfortable feeling that I'd crossed a line I'd always sworn I never would. I don't usually do this, I said, pulling on my jeans. Sleep with married women, or have one-night stands in general? Both, I admitted. Megan's expression softened. Look, I don't make a habit of this either. But I don't regret it, and I hope you don't either. It was... She smiled, exactly what I needed. There was something so genuine in her voice that my anxiety eased slightly. I returned her smile. It was pretty amazing. See? Let's just enjoy it for what it was. She stood and walked to the desk where her purse lay. I should get going soon. Checkout's at noon, and I have some errands to run before heading home. I nodded, taking the hint. Right, of course. I finished dressing quickly, trying to ignore the awkwardness that inevitably follows waking up in a stranger's hotel room. At the door, Megan surprised me by rising on her tiptoes to kiss me softly. Thanks for making a rough time a little less rough, Nate. Anytime, I said automatically, then winced. I mean, not any time, obviously, since you're... I know what you meant, she laughed. Take care of yourself. And that, I thought as I rode the elevator down to the lobby, should have been the end of it. A momentary lapse in judgment, a pleasant memory. A story I'd never tell anyone. Just another statistic in the grand tradition of conference hookups. Except 2 weeks later, as I was leaving my downtown office, a text arrived from an unknown number. "Hi Nate, it's Megan from the Emerald. I'm going to be in your neighborhood tomorrow night. Any chance you want to grab a drink? No pressure." I stared at my phone, a war between desire and ethics raging in my mind. The right answer was obvious. Politely decline and delete her number. She was married, working on her relationship, and I was not the kind of guy who got involved with unavailable women. "Sure," I texted back. 7 p.m. at Bathtub Gin? Her response came immediately. "Perfect. See you then." And just like that, I became exactly the kind of guy I'd always judged. Part 2. Down the rabbit hole. Bathtub Gin was a small speakeasy-style bar, hidden behind a nondescript door in a back alley. You had to know it was there to find it, which made it feel intimate and secretive, appropriate, given the circumstances. I arrived 15 minutes early, ordered a whiskey sour, and spent the time alternating between checking the door and giving myself stern mental lectures about boundaries and good judgment. Those lectures evaporated the moment Megan walked in. She wore a simple black dress that hugged her curves, hair down around her shoulders, and a smile that made my stomach flip when she spotted me. "Hi," she said, sliding onto the stool next to mine. "Hi yourself," I replied, trying to keep my voice casual. "How are you?" "Better now," she said, her eyes holding mine. "Thanks for meeting me." One drink turned into 3 again. She told me about her healthcare app's latest frustrating pivot. I shared tales of my most ridiculous client requests, and we both studiously avoided mentioning her marriage or the fact that what we were doing crossed several ethical lines. Until after her 3rd Manhattan, she said, "Ryan's away again. 3 days in Chicago this time." "Oh," I replied, not knowing what else to say. "He doesn't know about what happened at the hotel," she continued, studying her drink. "We're still in counseling, still trying to rebuild." Those deadly air quotes again. I nodded, unsure where this was going. "He says he's ended things with Amber, his assistant." She laughed without humor. "Though he also says it was just physical and didn't mean anything. So who knows if that's true." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked gently. Megan looked up, her green eyes intense. "Because I'm trying to decide if I want to go home with you tonight, and I thought you should have all the information before I ask." My brain short-circuited. I'm not looking to leave him," she clarified. "I'm not looking for a relationship. But I am attracted to you, and life is short, and my marriage might be beyond saving anyway." "Megan," I started, trying to summon some ethical fortitude. "I like you. A lot. But I don't know if I can be the guy who helps you get revenge on your husband." She tilted her head. "Is that what you think this is? Revenge, isn't it?" "No." She put her hand on mine. "This is about me feeling good when so much of my life feels terrible. This is about connection in the middle of loneliness. This is about being with someone who looks at me like you're looking at me right now." And damn it, she was right about how I was looking at her. Like she was magnetic. Like she was exactly what I wanted. Complications and ethical dilemmas be damned. "Your place or mine?" I heard myself say. Her slow smile was answer enough. What started as a one-night stand evolved into a regular arrangement. Twice a week, sometimes more, Megan would text when Ryan was working late or traveling. I'd meet her at my apartment or occasionally at nice hotels when she wanted to make an evening of it. I told myself a lot of things to justify what we were doing. That her marriage was essentially over anyway. That Ryan had cheated first. That we were both consenting adults making choices that hurt no one but possibly ourselves. The lies we tell ourselves are always the most convincing. 2 months into our arrangement, I realized with growing horror that what had started as physical attraction and convenient comfort was developing into something much more dangerous. I loved the way Megan's face lit up when she talked about her work. I loved her sarcastic commentary during bad movies. I loved how she always brought me coffee from my favorite roaster when she came over, remembering exactly how I took it. I was falling for a married woman who had made it explicitly clear she wasn't leaving her husband. "You're quiet tonight," Megan observed as we lay in my bed, the Seattle skyline twinkling beyond my apartment windows. "Everything okay?" "Just thinking," I replied, tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. About what we're doing," I admitted. "About what happens next." She propped herself up on one elbow. "We agreed not to overthink this, remember?" "I know, but—" "Nate," she interrupted gently, "don't make this complicated. Please. My life is complicated enough already." "How's the counseling going?" I asked, changing tactics. Her expression clouded. "It's going. Ryan seems committed to making things work." "And you?" "I'm here, aren't I?" she said softly. I swallowed hard. "Do you love him?" Megan was quiet for a long moment. "I've been with him for 10 years. That doesn't just disappear overnight, even after what he did." It wasn't really an answer, but it told me everything I needed to know. "I should go," she said, sliding out of bed and reaching for her clothes. "Early meeting tomorrow." I watched her dress quickly, efficiently. The ritual, so familiar now it had its own rhythm. As she leaned over to kiss me goodbye, I caught her wrist gently. "We can't keep doing this indefinitely," I said, the words painful but necessary. "At some point, you'll either have to choose your marriage or end it." Megan's eyes flashed with something, anger, fear, before her expression smoothed. "Let's not have this conversation tonight, okay? I'll text you later this week." After she left, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering how I'd managed to become so deeply entangled in someone else's marriage. Wondering, too, why I couldn't seem to extricate myself despite knowing better. The next day at work, I couldn't focus. My mind kept replaying our conversation, wondering if I'd pushed too hard or not hard enough. By lunchtime, I'd accomplished nothing except wearing a path in the carpet from pacing. My phone buzzed with a text from Megan. "Sorry about last night. You caught me off guard. Can we talk? Dinner tonight?" Relief flooded through me. Of course. "Where and when?" "7:30 at Altura?" I made a reservation. Altura was one of Seattle's most upscale Italian restaurants, a surprising choice for our usual low-key meetups. "Sounds great. See you then." I spent the rest of the day alternating between anxiety and anticipation. Was she planning to end things? To commit more fully? The possibility that she might actually be considering leaving Ryan sent a mix of guilt and hope surging through me. Altura's warm, intimate lighting cast a golden glow over the dining room as the host led me to a corner table. Megan hadn't arrived yet, so I ordered a glass of Barolo and tried to calm my nerves. At 7:40, my phone buzzed. "Running 10 minutes late. Order the burrata if you're hungry." I smiled and did as suggested, adding an order of the restaurant's famous focaccia. At 7:55, another text. "Sorry, caught in traffic. Be there soon." By 8:15, with no further updates and my second glass of wine nearly empty, unease began to creep in. I texted her, "Everything okay?" The response came immediately. "Almost there. 5 more minutes." True to her word, 5 minutes later, Megan rushed in, looking flustered but gorgeous in a deep blue dress I hadn't seen before. She slid into her seat with an apologetic smile. "I'm so sorry," she said, reaching for my hand across the table. "Work emergency. Then traffic was a nightmare." "No problem," I replied, squeezing her hand. "You look beautiful." She beamed. "Thank you. This place is lovely. I've been wanting to try it forever." As she settled in, ordering a glass of Prosecco and exclaiming over the burrata I'd saved for her, I noticed something odd. She seemed nervous. Her usual confident demeanor had an edge of tension, her smile a bit too bright, her laughter a touch too quick. "Everything okay?" I asked when there was a lull in conversation. "Perfect," she said, but her eyes darted around the restaurant briefly before returning to mine. "Actually, there's something I wanted to talk to you about." "Here it comes," I thought, bracing myself. Megan took a deep breath. "Ryan and I had a breakthrough in counseling yesterday." My stomach dropped. "Oh, we finally got to the heart of our issues. The trust problems, the distance between us." She twisted her wedding ring, a habit I'd noticed she had when discussing her marriage. He's agreed to make some major changes. Less travel, regular date nights, total transparency with his phone and email. I forced a smile. That's great. Really great for you guys. I think we might actually have a chance to save our marriage, she continued, her eyes shining with what looked suspiciously like tears. Which means we need to end this, I finished for her, my voice steadier than I felt. She nodded, reaching for my hand again. You've been amazing, Nate. These past months with you have meant so much to me. You helped me remember who I am outside of all the pain. I swallowed hard. I'm glad I could be there for you. I wish things could be different, she said softly. But they can't, I replied, gently withdrawing my hand from hers. I understand. The waiter arrived with our main courses, dishes we'd ordered with an appetite that had suddenly vanished. We ate in awkward silence, making occasional small talk about the food, the restaurant, the unseasonably dry weather Seattle had been enjoying. As we waited for the check, Megan's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and a strange expression crossed her face. Everything okay? I asked. Fine, she said quickly, tucking the phone away. Just a work thing. The waiter returned with my credit card. As we stood to leave, Megan suddenly looked panicked. Would you mind if we left separately? She asked in a low voice. I just remembered Ryan mentioned he might be meeting clients near here tonight, and I don't want any awkward run-ins. It stung more than it should have. After all, what did I expect? That we'd walk out arm in arm after ending our affair? Of course, I said, forcing another smile. You go ahead. I'll wait a few minutes. She hugged me tightly, whispering thank you for everything in my ear, then hurried out without looking back. I sat back down heavily, signaling the waiter for another glass of wine. The proper end to an improper relationship. I should have felt relieved, freed from the ethical quagmire I'd been wading through for months. Instead, I felt hollow. 15 minutes and one more glass of Barolo later, I stepped out into the cool Seattle night. The restaurant was in Capitol Hill, not far from several popular bars and clubs, so the streets were busy with Thursday night revelers. I decided to walk a few blocks to clear my head before calling a rideshare. As I turned the corner onto Pike Street, I froze. There, half a block ahead, was Megan, getting into a sleek black Tesla with a tall, well-dressed man who had his arm wrapped possessively around her waist. As they reached the car, he pulled her close and kissed her deeply, his hand sliding down to cup her ass in a way that suggested intimate familiarity. It wasn't a goodbye kiss. It wasn't a we're working on our marriage kiss. It was a kind of kiss you give someone you've been sleeping with regularly and plan to continue sleeping with in the immediate future. I ducked into a doorway, heart pounding, as they got into the car and drove away. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what I'd just witnessed. Was that Ryan? Had I misinterpreted completely innocent physical affection between husband and wife after a breakthrough in marriage counseling? But if that was Ryan, why the secrecy? Why the separate departures from the restaurant? Why had she been so nervous all evening? With shaking hands, I pulled out my phone and opened Instagram, searching for Ryan Walsh, Megan's husband, whom I'd carefully avoided investigating before now. Several Ryan Walshes appeared, but one profile picture showed Megan beside a man with dark hair at what looked like a wedding. I clicked on it and found myself staring at a private account with a bio. VC by day, amateur chef by night. Seattle SF Seattle again. Go Huskies. The profile picture showed Ryan with his arm around Megan, both smiling on what appeared to be a hiking trail. Ryan was handsome in that tech bro who climbs mountains way. Athletic build, square jaw, confident smile. He also looked absolutely nothing like the man I'd just seen kissing Megan outside the restaurant. Part 3. The setup becomes clear. I spent a sleepless night cycling through possibilities, each more disturbing than the last. Maybe it wasn't Megan I'd seen? No, I was certain it was her. That blue dress was distinctive, and I'd recognize her anywhere after months of intimacy. Maybe Ryan had drastically changed his appearance since that Instagram photo? Possible but unlikely. The most obvious explanation was also the most painful. Megan had been lying to me. About what, exactly, I wasn't sure yet, but the pieces didn't fit. In the harsh light of morning, I made a decision I'd been avoiding for months. I would do some basic research on the woman I'd been sleeping with. Something I probably should have done before getting involved with a supposedly married woman claiming her husband was cheating. A quick LinkedIn search for Megan Walsh, Seattle UX, Design Healthcare, yielded nothing promising. Expanding to just Megan Walsh, Seattle, brought up several profiles, none of which seemed to match the woman I knew. Strange for someone who had spoken in detail about her career in tech. Next, I tried a general search for Megan and Ryan Walsh in Seattle. Property records, social media profiles, anything that would confirm the basic facts of her life as she'd presented them to me. Nothing. Not a single reference to a couple matching their description. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. With increasingly frantic keystrokes, I expanded my search, looking for any trace of the woman who had shared my bed for months. 2 hours later, I sat back, stunned. Either Megan Walsh was a ghost who had managed to erase all digital traces of her existence. Impressive in 2024, or Megan Walsh wasn't her real name. I pulled out my phone and stared at our text conversation. I hadn't saved her as a contact, paranoid about leaving evidence of our affair. The area code was local, at least. On impulse, I opened my payment app and scrolled through recent transactions. There was last night's dinner at Altura, where I'd paid for both of us. No sign of any payments to or from a Megan Walsh, though. We'd usually split checks or taken turns paying when we went out, but she always used cash when it was her turn. Another red flag I'd missed. What the hell was going on? I spent the weekend in a fog, alternating between anger, confusion, and a growing sense of dread. By Monday morning, I'd made up my mind to confront her directly. I texted, "We need to talk. Who was that man at the restaurant Thursday night? And why can't I find any trace of you or Ryan Walsh online?" Hours passed with no response. By evening, my message still showed as delivered but unread. I tried calling, but the phone went straight to voicemail. A woman's generic automated greeting, not even Megan's voice. Tuesday brought more of the same. By Wednesday, I was beginning to wonder if I'd imagined the entire 3-month relationship. If not for the texts on my phone and the lingering scent of her perfume on a scarf she'd left at my apartment, I might have convinced myself it was all an elaborate hallucination. On Thursday afternoon, exactly 1 week after our breakup dinner, I received a text from an unknown number, different from Megan's. "Hi Nate. We should talk. The Elliott Bay Book Company Cafe, tomorrow, 1 p.m. Come alone. R. Ryan? The mysterious husband I'd been cuckolding?" My heart raced as possibilities flooded my mind. Was I about to get confronted? Threatened? Beat up in a public bookstore cafe? Despite my better judgment, at 1 p.m. the next day, I found myself entering the large independent bookstore in downtown Seattle, making my way to its small cafe in the back. I'd arrived early, ordering a coffee and claiming a corner table with good sight lines to the entrance. At precisely 1 p.m., a man walked in. Tall, trim, silver-haired, and expensively dressed in a way that spoke of old money rather than tech wealth. He scanned the cafe, spotted me, and walked directly to my table. "Nathan Cooper?" he asked, his voice smooth and controlled. I nodded warily. "Robert Ellis," he said, extending his hand. "I believe we have a mutual acquaintance." Not Ryan Walsh, then. My confusion deepened as I shook his hand. "May I?" He gestured to the empty chair across from me. "Please," I replied, studying him carefully. He appeared to be in his 50s, with a confident bearing of someone accustomed to power. This was not the tech bro husband I'd imagined, nor the man I'd seen kissing Megan outside the restaurant. "I understand you've been seeing my wife," he said, without preamble. I nearly choked on my coffee. "Your wife?" "Yes. Though you know her as Megan Walsh." He smiled thinly. "Her real name is Melanie Ellis." The room seemed to tilt slightly. "I don't understand." "No, I don't suppose you do." He sighed, folding his hands on the table. "Melanie has a particular hobby. One I've learned to accommodate over the years." "A hobby," I repeated numbly. "She seeks out men like you, intelligent, decent, usually recently single. She creates elaborate personas and scenarios to draw them in. The married woman in a troubled relationship is her favorite role. It provides the perfect justification for discretion and limited availability. I felt sick. Are you saying everything was a lie? That she's not even married to someone named Ryan? Oh, she's married, Robert Ellis said, his expression unreadable. To me. For 15 years now. There is no Ryan Walsh, no healthcare app, no marriage counseling. But why? I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. Excitement. Challenge. The thrill of creating and controlling a narrative. He shrugged slightly. Melanie gets bored easily. Conventional life doesn't provide enough stimulation for her. And you just okay with this? I asked incredulously. For the first time, a genuine emotion crossed his face, something like weariness mixed with resignation. Our marriage has its own parameters. I have my diversions, she has hers. We found an arrangement that works. My mind raced to catch up. The man I saw her with last week? Ah, Robert nodded. That would be Alex. Her current project. She usually maintains 2 or 3 relationships simultaneously. Different stories for different men. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Not only had I not been breaking up a marriage, I'd been just one of multiple men she was seeing, each of us thinking we were special in our own way. Why are you telling me this? I asked when I could find my voice again. Robert Ellis reached into his jacket and pulled out a small leather notebook, sliding it across the table. I recognized it instantly, my work journal that I'd thought I'd lost weeks ago. Melanie took this from your apartment, he said. She likes to collect small trophies from her conquests. Usually nothing valuable or immediately noticeable. A habit I've asked her to break, without success. I stared at the notebook, memories flooding back of searching my apartment for it, convinced I'd left it at the office. I'm returning it because it appears to contain work information that might be important to you, he continued. And because this time, Melanie crossed a line. What line? I asked, still struggling to process everything. Robert Ellis's jaw tightened slightly. She told me you were a divorced marketing executive who pursued her aggressively despite knowing she was married. That you were obsessive, potentially dangerous. She showed me texts that made it appear you were threatening her. That's insane, I protested. I never. He held up a hand. I know. I had you investigated. A precaution I take when Melanie expresses concern about one of her friends. The investigator found nothing concerning in your background, but did discover substantial inconsistencies in Melanie's story. A chilling thought occurred to me. Has this happened before? Has she accused other men of threatening her? Robert Ellis's silence was answer enough. Jesus, I muttered, running a hand through my hair. So what happens now? Now, he said, standing smoothly, you move on with your life. Melanie won't contact you again. I've made that quite clear to her. I've also frozen the credit card she used to finance her activities, including the hotels where you met. As he prepared to leave, a question burned in my mind. Does she actually work in UX design? Was any of it real? A sad smile crossed his face. Melanie doesn't work. She manages our household staff and serves on several charity boards. She studied art history at Barnard. With that, he nodded politely and walked away, leaving me alone with my shattered perceptions and a recovered notebook I no longer cared about. I sat there for a long time, replaying every moment with Megan, searching for clues I'd missed. The careful management of our meeting times, the cash payments, the convenient business trips and late work meetings that limited our time together. Her reluctance to be photographed, always grabbing my phone to delete unflattering shots. It all made painful sense now. As I finally left the bookstore, my phone buzzed with a text from yet another unknown number. He doesn't understand me like you do. We could still see each other. I'll explain everything. M. I blocked the number without responding and deleted all traces of our conversation. Then I walked to the nearest bar and ordered the strongest drink they offered. 6 months later, I was having lunch with a colleague when I spotted her across the restaurant, the woman I'd known as Megan Walsh. She was with a younger man who gazed at her adoringly as she spoke, her hands animated, her smile radiant. She wore her hair differently now, shorter with blonde highlights, but there was no mistaking those green eyes or the way she leaned forward slightly when listening, making whoever she was talking to feel like the most important person in the world. Our eyes met briefly across the crowded space. She showed no sign of recognition, turning smoothly back to her companion without missing a beat in whatever story she was telling. I wondered what name she was using now, what elaborate background story she'd created, whether this man thought he was having an affair with a married woman, or if she'd crafted an entirely different scenario for him. Most of all, I wondered how I'd been so easily deceived, how readily I'd accepted her narrative because it flattered my ego to be the chosen one, the secret escape from her troubled marriage. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the young man at the restaurant, blissfully unaware he was just another character in her elaborate game. Should I warn him? Would he even believe me? I decided to do something I should have done months ago. I searched for Melanie Ellis Seattle and found her immediately. Society pages showed her at charity galas with Robert, the silver-haired man who'd met me at the bookstore. Their family foundation donated millions to arts organizations across the city. There she was, perfectly poised in professional photographs, not a single candid shot among them, always carefully curated. On impulse, I called the one person who might understand. Detective Sharma? This is Nathan Cooper. You investigated me a few months back for Robert Ellis. There was a pause on the line. I remember. What can I do for you, Mr. Cooper? Did you find others? Other men like me? Another pause. I'm not at liberty to discuss my client's business. Please, I said. I just need to know I'm not crazy. I heard a sigh. You're not crazy, Mr. Cooper. You're not the first, and you won't be the last. Has she ever been dangerous? Beyond the lies, I mean. Not physically, if that's what you're asking. But there was one man 3 years ago who had a complete breakdown when he learned the truth. Lost his job, his apartment. Last I heard, he'd moved back to Ohio to live with his parents. I thanked him and hung up, feeling a strange mix of relief and renewed unease. 2 days later, a plain manila envelope appeared in my mailbox. No return address. Inside was a USB drive and a handwritten note. You deserve to know the full truth. I'm sorry. The drive contained dozens of audio files, recordings of Melanie speaking to someone, presumably a therapist. The thrill isn't in the sex, her voice said clearly. It's in the construction of a narrative, building a person they'll fall for, threading in just enough vulnerability to make them feel needed, creating obstacles that feel real but are actually designed to deepen their attachment. And Robert knows about all of this, the therapist asked. A laugh. Robert designed the game. 20 years ago, he caught me having an affair, and instead of divorcing me, he suggested we turn it into something we share. He vets the men, has them investigated. Sometimes he chooses them for me. The danger is supposed to be controlled. Supposed to be? I went off script with Nathan. Robert didn't select him. I did. I maintained 2 other relationships exactly as Robert had orchestrated, but Nathan was mine. That's why Robert ended it. He said I was getting too emotionally involved. Were you? A long silence. Maybe. He was different. He actually cared about Megan beyond the physical. Asked about her day, remembered details. Most men just want the forbidden fruit aspect, the excitement of the affair. Nathan seemed to genuinely care about this person I'd invented. I stopped the recording, feeling sick. I was just another player in their twisted game, not even an authorized one. A diversion from her diversion. I almost deleted the rest of the files, but something compelled me to keep listening. In later sessions, Melanie described how she and Robert had started this arrangement. His idea, after her first affair, a way to control her infidelity by making it part of their shared experience. How he would watch recordings she secretly made in hotel rooms. How they would role-play her encounters later. My skin crawled. I'd been performing unwittingly in their private theater. The final recording was different, just Melanie speaking directly, not to her therapist. Nathan, if you're listening to this, I owe you an apology. Everything I told you was a lie, except one thing. When I said you made me feel seen. That part was true. In all the roles I've played, all the men I've deceived, you're the only one who made me wish the person I pretended to be was real. I deleted all the files and threw the USB drive into Elliott Bay the next morning. 6 months later, I was leaving Seattle for good, a new job waiting in Denver. As I waited for my rideshare outside my empty apartment, a black Tesla pulled up. The window rolled down to reveal Robert Ellis. "Mr. Cooper," he said politely, "I heard you were leaving town. I wanted to give you something." He held out an envelope. Inside was a check for $50,000. "What is this?" I asked. "Compensation for your inconvenience," he said smoothly. "And a non-disclosure agreement. Your signature will ensure your silence about Melanie and our arrangement." I stared at the check, then at this wealthy man who thought everything and everyone had a price. "You know what's interesting?" I said, tearing the check in half. "I never planned to tell anyone this story. It's too embarrassing, too strange. No one would believe me anyway. But now I'm thinking I should write it all down. The accidental homewrecker. Has a nice ring to it, don't you think?" Fear flashed in his eyes. "Be reasonable." "I am being reasonable. I don't want your money. I want you both to get help." I turned to my arriving rideshare. "And Robert, next time you have me investigated, dig deeper. You'll find I'm a pretty good writer." As my car pulled away, I caught a glimpse of him standing there, looking uncertain for the first time. I did write it all down, though I never published it. Not because I was afraid of the Elises, but because the story wasn't really mine to tell. It belonged to all of us who've been deceived, who believed what we wanted to believe, who've fallen for narratives that were too perfect to be true. I sometimes wonder if Melanie is still out there, crafting new identities, weaving new webs. I wonder if she ever found whatever it was she was looking for in all those fictional lives she created. I wonder if Robert still orchestrates her affairs, or if they found a new game to play. But mostly I've stopped looking back. The accidental homewrecker has wrecked his last home, even if it was never really a home to begin with. The end.